So we've come a long way from a world trying to recover after World War One to a world slowly falling apart again. After the war, leaders met to decide the future. The big three tried to build peace, but not everyone was satisfied. Some countries felt humiliated, others felt ignored, and before long it was almost as if history itself was saying, "Guess who's back?" Meanwhile, in Russia, revolution had already changed everything. A new system emerged, a new government took power, and Europe had to face a whole new political reality. All certainties disappeared, and for many people, the world no longer felt calm or secure. It no longer felt like a lush life. Then came the Treaty of Versailles, a treaty meant to bring peace, but one that in reality left deep resentment behind. Germany lost territory, power, and pride, and those feelings did not simply vanish, they stayed there quietly, waiting, as if the world were moving toward a night whispering, "Tonight you belong to me." In Spain, during the Civil War, the bombing of Guernica shocked the world. It showed what modern warfare could do. Civilians were caught in the middle, and the destruction was so brutal that it almost felt like people had stepped into a gangster's paradise of violence, fear, and chaos. And still, many hoped things would somehow return to normal. Many wanted peace, rest, escape, as if someone could simply come and say, "Mr. Sandman, take this nightmare away." But step by step, Europe began to change. Germany expanded the Anschluss, united Austria with Nazi Germany, and many people watched but did nothing. That moment mattered because every new step made the next one easier. And in a way, each act of aggression seemed to say, "This is for power, territory, and control." Soon after, something even more surprising happened. Germany and the Soviet Union, enemies in ideology, signed the Nazi Soviet Pact. It was one of those moments that made the whole world stop and stare across borders, almost stateside and beyond, wondering how such an agreement was even possible. And then the war began. In September 1939, Germany invaded Poland and World War II officially started. At first, everything happened incredibly fast. Countries fell quickly one after the other, and Europe seemed to have no time to breathe. Some leaders must have thought, "This is not the ally I expected, not the friend I trusted, not the man I need in a crisis." France was defeated, and suddenly Britain stood alone. At Dunkirk, hundreds of thousands of soldiers were trapped, surrounded by German forces. And yet, against all odds, they were rescued in what became known as the Miracle of Dunkirk. Small boats, big ships, civilians, everyone came together. And from the British point of view, the message was clear. We may feel isolated, but we are so American movie dramatic right now. Only this was real, and lives depended on it. Then came the Battle of Britain. For months, planes filled the air, the skies. The Luftwaffe attacked, and Britain resisted. Bombs fell on cities, civilians hid underground, and pilots risked everything in the air. The violence was enormous, the speed was terrifying, and the destruction above them felt almost Godzilla sized. But Britain did not surrender, and that matters because history is full of moments when people refuse to be treated like helpless children. They stand up, they resist, they refuse to be reduced to a man child version of a nation waiting to be rescued. And that is one of the reasons this story matters so much to us. because even in dark times, history is not fixed. The future is not completely written for us. There are still choices to make, and in that sense, the rest isn't written. Of course, not every story in history ends well. Some become tragic, almost literally, like the fate of Ophelia, overwhelmed by forces larger than herself. And some nations, after defeat, humiliation, and loss, begin to see themselves as abandoned, isolated, or betrayed, almost like nobody's son, alone in a hostile world. But history is never just about isolation, it is also about connection, alliances, and the people who stayed beside one another when everything seems lost. At Dunkirk, in the shelters, in the skies above Britain, there were moments that reminded the world that survival is rarely a solo act.